am Elena Whitman, 65 years old. And tonight my kitchen is lit by one candle sunk into a grocery store cupcake. The frosting is pearl white, a little ridiculous against the dark window, and the flame makes a weak circle on the countertop as if it's trying to pretend the room is company. Upstairs, the radiator ticks like an old metronome counting a song I don't want to hear. I hold my phone long enough to feel its nervous heat. Nothing blinks. No missed calls, no message. Mom, you home? When I finally swipe the screen, the world arrives in a spill of light. Michael's smile in a tuxedo. Sabrina's dress like poured champagne. A tag from a hotel ballroom. Whitman and Hayes. Annual gala. They are raising glasses. A crowd leans in. Someone has written, "So proud of our partners." I pinch the image until my son's face fills the screen. He is luminous. I am nowhere. I don't blow out the candle. I let the wax wet the paper cup and drip like a slow surrender. The room smells like vanilla and something else I can't name. The ache of a bakery at closing. The chair across from me is empty. It has been empty through a lot of dinners, but on a birthday it announces itself. I touch the rim of my plate as if I might steady it, as if a plate could steady a person. From the hallway mirror, a woman looks back with silver at her temples and lipstick she put on for no one. I say her name, Elena, to prove I remember what others have forgotten. The sound steadies me. Somewhere in this house is the story as I once believed it written. In my own careful hand. There is a ledger in the bedroom, a narrow book of lined pages where for years I recorded what I gave so I wouldn't ask for it back. I leave the candle burning and step away from the table. Phone still, bright in my hand. Anger beginning to hum like a live wire. The flame wobbles and holds on the screen. Michael is toasting something that doesn't include me. I decide I am done waiting to be invited to my own life. The ledger lives in the top dresser drawer beneath a stack of scarves that still smell faintly of lemon detergent. It's the kind of book restaurants used to keep by the register. Marbled cover, spine gone, soft from being opened and opened again. I carry it to the kitchen and set it beside the cupcake like a guest who came late. The pages remember even when people do not. First year out of law school, loan payoff, interest and remainder, a number I wrote twice as if ink should feel the weight. Next page, condo deposit, and below that, furniture. Fund so he doesn't sleep on boxes. Father in Sabrina's name on the day I co-signed her studio lease because the bank wanted one more layer of confidence. My initials appear in the margins like small stitches meant to hold the fabric steady. It would be easy to call this evidence, but that implies I am building a case. I am not. I am a woman who wanted her child to start without the bruises his father and I had to earn. I hear my late husband's voice from closing time at the restaurant. Let the boy run. And I see how often I ran behind him with water and towels. I stood once on the courthouse steps when Michael took his oath, clapping so hard my palms stung. He thanked mentors and colleagues, the city that believed in kids like me. I told myself it was nerves or humility that made his gratitude stop where it did. The lie slid down easily because I served it to myself on a proud plate. The phone buzzes against the table, only a small subscription charge that never forgets me. I close the ledger and smooth the cover. There is a cream envelope waiting on the counter that I haven't opened. The script loops like ribbon. I slide a finger under the flap and begin to read. The envelope is heavier than it looks. the kind that carries embossed lettering, and the promise of glittering chandeliers. I draw out the card and unfold it slowly as though it might announce something else. Gold letters. Declare, Sabrina's birthday. Celebration. Join us. Beneath a hotel. Name gleams. One of those places where valets and white gloves take your keys before you can even unbuckle. A long list of sponsors and partners is printed on the back. My name is not anywhere. Not on the front, not as a guest of honor, not even among the silent family. Expected to show up without fanfare. I run my thumb over the edge until it frays. The irony tastes metallic. They can print my address to send an invitation I was never meant to attend, yet forget the date etched on my birth certificate. A kind of arithmetic settles in. My birthday equals silence. Hers equals champagne towers. I should not compare, but comparison arrives like breath. It just happens. I press the phone to my ear and dial Michael. It rings, then folds into voicemail his recorded voice, brisk and professional. This is Michael Whitman. Leave a message. I hang up before the tone, leaving words there would feel like begging a locked door to open. The cupcake candle has gone out. Smoke trails in the air, thin and stubborn, refusing to disappear quickly. I watch it curl toward the ceiling and think about the nights I used to wait up for him when he was in college. The way relief swelled when the door finally opened. Tonight, there is no door to open, only a wall. Something shifts in my chest. Not a crack, but the click of a lock. Turning. I set the invitation down as though it has burned me. The room is too quiet. I know then that the next move cannot be silence. It has to be mine. The next morning, I called Richard Cole, my financial advisor of nearly 20 years. His office sits on the 23rd floor of a glass tower downtown, and just the elevator ride there feels like entering another country. Sleek, humming with ambition, polished in every corner. I hadn't visited in months, but the receptionist still recognized me, greeting me with that blend of courtesy and curiosity reserved for older women who rarely ask for appointments. Richard rose from behind his desk when I entered. Tall, steady, the kind of man who never seems hurried. Eleanor, he said, extending his hand. What brings you in? His tone carried warmth, but I noticed the flicker of surprise. I was usually the one insisting everything remain untouched, the cautious steward of a trust set up long ago. I sat down and smoothed the hem of my coat. I want to make a withdrawal, I told him. My voice came out clearer than I expected. Not the whole thing, just enough for something personal. He leaned back slightly, studying me over his glasses. The trust has liquid assets available. Larger amounts take a few days to process, but there's a cash account with more than enough to cover most immediate needs. May I ask, do you want to specify a reason? For a moment, I considered telling him everything. The cupcake, the silent phone, the golden invitation that felt like a blade. Instead, I said, it's my birthday. Like to give myself a present, one that can't be overlooked. Richard smiled in that professional way, respectful but not prying. He slid a form across the desk. I signed where he indicated, the pen heavy in my hand, like a gavel, striking wood. With each signature line, I felt a strand of invisibility loosening. This wasn't a request for permission. It was a declaration. The jewelry store on Newberry Street glittered like à l'Aituzweni. Pushed open the glass door. Inside, chandelier Castwarm light au verglas. cases that seemed to breathe with their
own rythme.
A woman in a black suit approached her. Smile polite but measured.
The way.
People smile when they aren't sure whether you are browsing or buying.
I
straightened my shoulders and told her, I'm looking for something memorable. She guided me past rings and bracelets, pausing at a case where a necklace shimmered as if it had gathered every
fragment of starlight.
A cascade of diamonds, each stone cut so precisely it seemed to pulse.
My reflection stared. Back from the glass.
Lined face, silver hair, eyes that had learned too much. Patience. For a moment I almost turned away, but then I leaned closer. Would you like to try it on? She asked. Her tone was gentle.
Note the condescension I.
Half expected, but genuine curiosity. I nodded. She lifted the necklace with gloved hands and fastened it around my neck. The cool weight settled against my
collarbone like a verdict. In the
mirror, I saw myself differently. Not the woman waiting by a phone, not the parent erased from an invitation, but someone whose presence filled the frame. My throat tightened, though not with shame. It was recognition. I'll take it, I said, surprising both of us with how quickly the words came. The associate blinked, then smiled wider, leading me to a small desk where velvet boxes waited. I handed over Richard's cashier's check, the numbers bold on the page. There was no hesitation, no
tremor in my hand. When you walked out,
the winter air bit my cheeks, but the necklace stayed warm against my skin. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying proof of sacrifice. I was carrying proof of myself. At home that evening, I laid the velvet box on my bedspread as though it were an honored guest. The necklace rested inside, gleaming against the dark lining, daring me to claim it. I ran my fingers along the clasp, half afraid the stones would vanish if I blinked. This wasn't a trinket tucked away for someone else's milestone. This was mine, and it waited for me to step into it fully. Clara called just after dinner. Her voice, brisk and warm, carried through the receiver. So, birthday girl, how are you holding up? She didn't know about the cupcake or the empty chair. I hadn't wanted to burden her with that picture. I told her I bought myself something. There was a pause, then a laugh edged with curiosity. Eleanor, what did you do? A necklace, I said simply. Diamonds. I'm going to wear it tomorrow night. To wear to the gala. Her silence stretched long enough that I thought the line had dropped. Then she said, do you want me to go with you? I stared at the necklace, its facets catching the lamp's glow. No, I answered. This is something I have to do on my own. After we hung up, I searched online for tickets. The gala doubled as a charity benefit, which meant a few seats were still available for donors willing to pay. I entered my information, donated in my own name, and received a confirmation email within minutes. That simple exchange, no gatekeepers, no family politics, felt like opening a door that had been nailed shut. I pulled the navy dress from the back of my closet, the one I hadn't worn since Heron was alive. The fabric smelled faintly of cedar from storage, but it slipped over my frame with surprising ease. Tomorrow night, I would walk into that ballroom, not as an afterthought, but as someone who decided she belonged. The hotel loomed against the night sky, its glass front catching every stray light from Boylston Street. A doorman in a navy coat opened the door before I reached for it, his gloved hand steady, his nod wordless. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of lees and polished wood. Couples in evening clothes drifted past me, their laughter floating upward like balloons that had forgotten gravity. At the check-in table, I handed over the printed confirmation.
The young woman.
Scanning names, looked at the sheet, then at me. Thank you, Miss Whitman. Here's your badge. Her smile was professional, untroubled. No one questioned why I was here. That alone felt revolutionary. The ballroom doors opened to a rush of
Golden light. Cristal chandelier blazed.
above tables draped in white linen. The hum of conversation swelled around me. The percussion of clinking glasses.
Keeping time.
I pinned my badge to my dress and stepped inside. Every inch of the diamond necklace catching sparks.
From the chandelier.
Across the room, I spotted Michael near the stage, his posture polished, his laugh practiced for colleagues and
Client.
Sabrina floated beside him, sequins flashing like a signal. They looked like royalty presiding over a kingdom. I stayed in the crowd's edges, watching unnoticed. My pulse thudded in my ears, part fear.
Par anticipation.
A waiter offered me a flute of champagne. I accepted the stem, cold between my fingers, and took a
Careful sip.
The bubbles raced across my tongue, sharper than I remembered. Around me, conversations swirled about mergers and clients, names I didn't know, and didn't need to. I wasn't here for their stories. I was here for mine.
Standing in the swell of strangers.
Necklace warm against my throat, I knew. The moment was approaching when silence would no longer serve me. The master of ceremonies tapped a spoon against his glass, the sound rippling outward until the chatter dimmed. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, let's raise a glass to another year of Whitman and Hayes thriving, thanks to the leadership of our remarkable partners. Applause thundered. Michael stepped forward, bow tie straight, his grin wide as a marquee. Sabrina's hand rested on his arm, her smile fixed in place. I felt the champagne fizz collapse inside my chest. The room tilted, not from alcohol, but from the realization that once again I was meant to stand, invisible in the wings. My fingers tightened around the glass stem until it threatened to snap. And then I heard my own voice, steady, cutting through the applause. Excuse me. Dozens of heads turned. The spotlight shifted slightly, curious to find me. My pulse hammered, but my feet carried me toward the stage. Michael's smile faltered as I climbed the small set of steps, each one echoing louder than the last. I faced the crowd. My name is Elena Whitman, I said, my voice firm. Today is my 65th birthday. A hush fell so complete I could hear the chandeliers hum. I reached into my clutch, drew out the velvet box, and opened it slowly. Gasps fluttered across the room as I lifted the necklace free and fastened it around my throat. I gave this to myself. I continued, the diamonds catching every shard of light. Because sometimes the only way to be seen is to stop waiting for someone else to remember you. Silence stretched thick and unbroken. Michael's face flushed crimson. Sabrina's lips parted, but no words came. I set my empty champagne flute on the podium, nodded once to the bewildered audience, and turned toward the stairs. I had said enough. The ballroom seemed to exhale as I stepped away from the podium. Conversations faltered, then dissolved into whispers that followed me like a trailing veil. My heels clicked against the polished floor, each strike measured, deliberate, announcing that I was not in a hurry. For once, I was not rushing to soothe, to apologize, or to explain. At the edge of the stage, a waiter shifted, uncertainly, his tray trembling under the weight of untouched glasses. I offered him a small smile, a gesture to ease his nerves, and continued toward the doors. The chandelier light dimmed. Behind me, replaced by the cooler glow of the hallway sconces. The shift felt like stepping from theater into truth. I passed clusters of guests still staring, their voices lowered as though discussing a scandal. That was his mother, one woman murmured. Did you know? Another whispered back. The words should have pierced me, but instead they rolled off like rain against glass. Their surprise was not my burden. Michael did not call after me. Perhaps he was rooted to the stage, or perhaps he had nothing prepared for such a scene. Either way, his silence was answer enough. Sabrina's gaze burned against my back, but I didn't turn. I had no interest in watching her mask crack. The corridor stretched long and hushed. My reflection flickered in the mirrors along the wall. An older woman, in a navy dress, necklace blazing like captured fire. At the elevator bank, I pressed the button and waited, the hum of machinery rising from the shaft. When the doors slid open, I stepped inside and faced forward. As the elevator descended, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The numbers above the door ticked down, and with each floor I felt lighter, as though I was leaving behind not just a room but years of silence. The house greeted me with its familiar hush, the kind that pressed against the ears after leaving a noisy crowd. I set my clutch on the counter and slipped off the necklace, laying it gently in its box. For a moment, I simply stared at it. The stone, still alive with reflections from the ballroom as though they carried evidence of what I had done. My phone blinked on the table. 6 missed calls from Michael, 2 from Sabrina. I picked it up, felt the vibration still pulsing, like a heartbeat, then set it back down. Let them wait. Tonight, I would not be summoned like a servant scrambling to smooth over their discomfort. Instead, I opened my laptop and typed Women's Shelters, Massachusetts into the search bar. The first result led me to an organization that had been on the local news last winter. Their mission was clear: housing and support for women starting over. I clicked donate, entered the same amount I had once transferred to Sabrina's studio lease, and press submit. A confirmation email appeared instantly, a small digital receipt that meant more than any thank you I would receive from family. May you never feel invisible. I typed into the optional note field. My throat tightened as I pressed send. The house stayed quiet, but it no longer felt empty. Purpose filled the air where disappointment had been. I made tea, letting the kettle whistle loud enough to drown out the phone's buzz. With each sip, the bitterness eased from my chest, replaced by something steadier, calmer. Upstairs, I packed a small suitcase, just a few clothes, a book, the necklace in its box. Tomorrow, I would leave for a while. The city could have its galas and gossip. I wanted sky, water, and distance enough to hear my own voice without interruption. Morning arrived pale and brisk, the kind of New England winter light that sharpened everything it touched. Clara pulled up to the curb in her sedan, waving through the windshield with the enthusiasm of someone who refused to let life dull her edges. I locked the front door behind me, suitcase rolling over the walkways, uneven stones, and slid into the passenger seat. The necklace rested against my throat, hidden beneath my scarf, but heavy enough to remind me it was still there. Clara glanced at me as she pulled into traffic. You look different, she said, voice gentle. I feel different, I admitted. The words surprised me with their steadiness. She waited, hands sure on the wheel. Finally, she asked, "Do you regret it? Standing up like that?" I looked out at the river, ice gathering in the corners, where the current slowed. "No," I said. "For the first time in years, I chose myself. That's not something to regret." We drove in comfortable silence, the city receding behind us. Billboards and office towers gave way to stretches of bare trees, their branches etched against the sky like handwriting. Each mile felt like a page turning. At the airport, Clara hugged me tight. "Call me when you land," she insisted. "I will." As I wheeled my bag toward security, I caught my reflection in a pane of glass. The woman looking back was not invisible. She was present, steady, still carrying sorrow, but no longer defined by it. The diamonds at my collarbone winked faintly, as if conspiring with the morning sun. Airplanes roared in the distance, their paths carving new directions across the sky. I lifted my chin and followed, knowing the road ahead might be uncertain, but certain that it was mine. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.